Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here. Right now, we're talking about Antonio Johnson, named a favorite pick at safety by The Athletic. Around the NFL landscape since the draft, it's been draft grades galore, right? And The Athletic, they're doing a little bit of a different take on some draft grades here with Nick Baumgartner and Diante naming their favorite picks at each position in a recent article. Nick Baumgartner handling the offense, Diante doing the defensive picks, and one of the Jaguars' 2023 selections was bound to make the list, right? Just based on volume alone. And the guy who ended up making it was Antonio Johnson, being the pick for the Jaguars in the 5th round. Diante again handled all the defensive picks. He does a tremendous job covering the NFL at The Athletic and talking defense for them over there. Here's what he had to say about Antonio Johnson, the Jaguars' selection of him in the 5th round. He says the Jaguars needed depth and a future contingency for Rayshawn Jenkins as he approaches his age 30 season. Johnson is a good fit. His game is a throwback to strong safety archetype of old, a true thumper in run support, and a good tackler. Defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell can use more dependable players around the second level, and Johnson fits well in a defense that can blitz from all angles and likes to play zone. There won't be instant gratification, but I trust that Jacksonville will be happy to have Johnson grow into a future role. I couldn't agree more with Diante with what he wrote here. Some have kind of labeled Antonio Johnson as a nickel, big nickel. He's really more of a safety. I think that's absolutely true. While he did play nickel at A&M quite a lot, in their defense, he was really just lined in the slot, and really his assignment was more often than not to just cover the flats and cover underneath zones. So he's really not a nickel that's going to carry receivers down the field at the next level, in my opinion. And so the Jaguars have confirmed that as well, saying that Antonio Johnson is a safety for them. But yeah, I think he does project as a long-term starter for the Jaguars after they move on from Rayshawn Jenkins, whenever that may be. He's going to be under contract for the next couple years, but we'll see how that plays out. Again, he is going to be 30 years old. He's not just a thumper, Antonio Johnson, who can come downhill and blitz, which he does at an extremely high level. He's a playmaker in that role. He's not just a reliable guy. He's someone who forces fumbles at one of the highest clips I've seen from a safety coming out of college in a really long time. 7 forced fumbles over the last 2 seasons for Antonio Johnson. Really rare stuff for him. You love that. If you can get someone on your defensive side of the ball who can give the ball back to Trevor Lawrence in this offense against the run, I think that can be invaluable long-term for the Jaguars. I do think you want to clean up some stuff with Antonio Johnson in terms of, just his instincts and coverage and understanding his assignments and all that. But I think you're going to get, like I said, a long-term starter who can be a playmaker for you. In coverage, I agree with Diante here. If the Jaguars stick with more zone looks, which I think they should and they will based on their personnel, Antonio Johnson kind of fits into that mold well long term. So I think it was a very good pick for the Jaguars. I've labeled it as probably one of the steals of the draft. Diante tends to agree. This was a prospect that many had ranked in the 2nd or 3rd round of this draft, falls to the 5th round. Jaguars nab him up, and they're happy to have him in Jacksonville, and he's only 21 years old to boot. So a guy who has a lot of good football in front of him, a lot of growth in front of him as a professional. Can't wait to see how it plays out for Antonio Johnson. Thank you so much for tuning in, Duval. Let me know what you think about Antonio Johnson and the pick of him in the 5th round for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Hit me up on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo. You can also drop a comment in the comment section below. Hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube if you're on your podcast platform of choice. Please subscribe and review. Have a good one, Duval.